The Blast from Our Past Network.
Hey everybody, Corey here.
And it's me, Zach.
We wanted to tell you about our new show called The Coscarelli Factor.
You can find it on our Patreon at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. The Coscarelli Factor covers every single film that Don Coscarelli has directed. And some other little bonus features in there too, like maybe the music videos he directed as well.
That's right. You can find all the episodes under the Auteur de Force tier on our Patreon page. Like Zach said, that's patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. And if you sign up today, you will get access to the complete Carpenter Factor series, where Zach and I went through every single movie that John Carpenter directed, from Dark Star all the way to, well, all the way till the end. So sign up today to our Patreon page and you can unlock all kinds of other things as well, like ad-free episodes and our monthly wrap-up After Dark show.
Patreon helps keep the lights on in the podcasting After Dark world. It gets pretty dark out there at night, and all your support keeps us from getting too scared.
And thank you to everyone who's signed up to our Patreon page. We really appreciate it. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side. Supernatural, Halloween, exploitation, slashers, and everything in between. Welcome to the Podcasting After Dark Watchlist, the show where a guest chooses a topic and the hosts, along with the guest, discuss their top favorites. Light a candle, hide your Ouija board, and enjoy the Podcasting After Dark Watchlist.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of our Christmas month, a whole month of holiday goodness. And, what wouldn't Christmas be without some fun toys and some obscure toys to talk about on this month's Pad Watch List? We are joined by Tim from Talking Back. Tim, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, Corey. Hey, Zach. It is going very well. I'm very excited to be here.
Happy to have you, dude.
Yeah. Now, Christmas time around Talking Back is when we tend to burst into song. So if I start singing carols, that's just on par for what we do.
All right.
I'll apologize in advance.
It's all right. We're quite, we sing a lot on Podcast After Dark as well, don't we, Zach?
We do. We sing the warm side of the door from Silent Night, Deadly Night, baby.
Dude, they finally put it back on Spotify, so now it's finally back into my playlist. I had to jump out of my playlist, go to YouTube to listen to that, and then go back to Spotify. But Tim, if you've never seen Silent Night, Deadly Night, it has an insanely beautiful original soundtrack. Like, all the Christmas songs are made for the movie, but they are like legitimately good Christmas songs.
Oh, cool. Was that the newer movie that came out like a year or two ago?
No. This one's actually just celebrated its 40th anniversary. So this year.
Right.
So yeah, it came out in 1984. But it's about a killer Santa Claus.
I just outed myself as having definitely never seen it.
Yeah, it's okay. Our good buddy Lee Germaini sent me the vinyl last
Cool.
year, I believe. So that will be spinning very soon on our house.
That's
Lovely.
right. And before we jump into the topic of tonight, Talking Back, Tim, you do that podcast with your brother Dean. It's on the BFOP network, and it's a fantastic podcast. It's personally one of my favorites, and that's not blowing smoke up your ass. You know that. I am a Patreon member as well. But every year, Talking Back, you guys are weekly, but every year you guys have a theme that you cover every month. And last year, it was ninja movies, which was fantastic. And this year, it's time travel films. But on Patreon as well, you guys are going through the James Bond 007 series, which is great for me because I haven't really watched a lot of them. And you've kind of helped me suss out which ones I do want to watch and which ones I probably can pass on. But plug the show, Tim. Let everyone else know the other stuff you guys talk about over there.
Well, I think that was a pretty good plug, Corey. I don't want to bore everybody with all of our all of our stuff, but yeah, we do movies, comics, video games, and more. So we're kind of all over the spectrum with like 80s, 90s nostalgia, sometimes the 70s. So if you like nostalgia, we're covering it over on Talking Back. So.
And speaking of music, when you said Spectrum, I had to hold it in. I almost said, and Spectrum's got such supervision. Da-na-na-na, mask.
Ooh.
Come on, Zach, help me out, buddy.
How does it? No one knows what lies behind the masquerade.
Da-na-na-na, mask.
Mask.
Hey, small spoiler alert, that might be hitting our podcast
Ooh.
this upcoming month.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
So you guys have another
Cartoon
spin-off
First.
show. Yep, Cartoon First, another one that I freaking love. You guys talk about a lot of 80s and 90s cartoons, but you only discuss the first episode, which was a bit of a problem for Gargoyles. But overall, it's
Correct.
it's a fun
And
one.
DuckTales, actually.
So, but like I said, the topic of tonight's episode, it's Tim's top 5 80s toys that he couldn't get in Canada. And I pitched this to Tim after hearing a story that he told on Talking Back about making trips down across the border into North Dakota, I think, and, buying some toys that you couldn't get back home. And it was kind of like this, amazing treat for you. And I was like, holy crap, that would be a great topic for, a watch list. But Tim, please feel free to elaborate and regale everyone with your 80s childhood. And by the way, Tim and I are the same age. We're both born in 78, so Zach's a couple years older than us.
Yeah, no, I love this idea, Corey, because I could literally talk all day about this aspect of my childhood nostalgia because it's so near and dear to my heart. But like, just to maybe share a bit about the state of toys when I was a kid growing up. So yes, I, grew up and still live in Canada. I live in Winnipeg, which is sort of right dead set in the middle of the country. It's very, very close to the border. We had lots of toys growing up. It was not hard to get toys. We had department stores, like we had Kmart, we had Sears, we had Eaton's. So all really good options for toys, but not really like a specific toy only store. So they were pretty selective with what they would get. We had Consumers Distributing. I wanted to ask both of you, because it was also a US chain. Are either of you familiar with Consumers Distributing?
No.
Okay, so it's like a warehouse philosophy of store. So they had everything in the back, and I think they did that to try to keep costs down. But you'd basically get a catalog in the mail, or you could go into the store and look through a catalog, and then you'd fill out a card of what you wanted, and you'd hand it to them, and then they'd go to the back and look for it, and then they'd come out empty-handed and be like, we don't have that. Do you want to get something else? So
We had that, and here it was called service merchandise.
Okay. So that was another one we had. So there were all these like options for toys, but it was quite hard to get your hands on what you wanted. I think like the US would definitely get toys ahead of us. There'd often be maybe a 6-month, 12-month gap between when the US would get something and when we would get something. I think we also had issues with the amount of toys that were coming across the border because stock was always low, pretty tough to get your hands on the hot items, unless you went as soon as they came out. So I got a shout out to the parents back in the day for getting us those Christmas presents that were hard to get because they probably drove to the store, the weekend that it was out so they could get it for us. But yeah, just like the inability to kind of get everything you wanted was problematic. I remember having 4 of the 5 Predacons, but I couldn't find the 5th. So when I'd put my Predacon transformer together, it was this giant transformer without a leg.
Oh no!
No,
was
it was
like,
the leg. It wasn't even an arm.
No, it was a leg. So I was like, I couldn't even really do much with that. But I mean, we had searched all the stores trying to find that, and it just wasn't in stock. So, yeah, a bit tough to come across stuff, but having lived so close to the border, it was easy for us to take trips into the U.S. You're right. We'd go to into North Dakota. That's right below us. We'd head to a small city called Grand Forks, and we'd go there to do some shopping. And we would usually go maybe for a weekend during the summer, or spring break was always a big one where we'd go. Or if there was just a long weekend or something, we might just head down for a night or two just to shop. So the Canadian dollar was not that great back then. But I think what some people forget is that things were so much cheaper in the US at that time that didn't even really make a difference. It still, I think, ended up being better value to go to the States and get, exchange your dollar and buy the stuff that they had. So heading down there, we just get there and Dad would, he'd grease your pockets with a bit of cash, and we'd walk into the mall. And then we'd go to KB Toys, which was not in our city. It was a dedicated toy store. It was wall-to-wall toys. It was shelves stacked so high that not only could I not reach things, my dad couldn't reach things. We'd have to call somebody over to get a ladder to pull something off the high rack for you. I think so many kids must have this same nostalgia of just walking up to a KB Toys with a little bit of money and just thinking, my goodness, this is the greatest day ever. It's lighting up the Christmas tree or something.
KB, just... Toys R Us gets so much fanfare and everything. People love their Toys R Us, but for me, KB is what I have the nostalgic love for. And maybe it's because KB was in the malls versus a separate store. So I felt like I had more options and more opportunities to go to KB if my mom was going somewhere else or my stepmom was shopping somewhere else. I could just pop over to KB and hang out in there.
Yeah, exactly. It was in the mall that we would go to, and we'd just go in, and I just remember walking the aisles in awe of all these new things that I'm seeing. So yes, I'm still seeing some of the stuff I know about, but it was all the new stuff that I had never seen before and was likely never going to make it to Canada for whatever reason. Maybe just because it wasn't the biggest brand, right? Of course, we're getting G.I. Joe, we're getting Transformers, we're getting all the important stuff, but it's some of this lesser known stuff that didn't do quite as well, that just wouldn't make its way across the border for whatever reason. So that's what I'm here to talk about today.
Nice.
Well, I have to ask you, what was the name of that place, that service merchandise place? Was it called Consolidated Stores? Is that what you?
It was called Consumers Distributing.
Oh, Consumers Distributing. Okay.
Yeah.
Because KB Toy Stores was sold to Consolidated Stores in 1996. So, but I'm excited to talk about this so much with you, because when you gave us a preview ahead of time of what's to come on this episode, I'm like, oh yeah, I had that. Oh yeah, I had that. I still have that. Yeah, I have that. A lot of haves. Not many not haves.
And the cool thing is, so Tim gave us the list of what they're going to be, so we know what they are. My contribution to this conversation is, because I actually didn't know a lot of these, is to do the wiki background on it. And then I found out 3 of the 5 of these don't even have wiki pages. So I'm like, oh my God. So this is how obscure some of this stuff is. And, just a little caveat is, while some of these, might have made it to Canada at some point, I do think, like Tim says, these are smaller, toy runs. Some things were only out for a year. So maybe they didn't even make it to Winnipeg. Maybe they only made it to Vancouver or something, something like that. Not to put any kind of rivalry there or anything, but yeah, you got some cool stuff here, and we have a lot to talk about. So guys and gals, let's get into it. So Tim gave me the list, so I'll kind of go through them, name them, and do the wiki, and then Tim can talk about what they mean to him. Zach can talk about how much he remembers them, and I can just sit silently because I don't remember barely any of them. So first up is Bugman of Insecta. Bugman of Insecta was produced by MTC and released in 1985, possibly 1984. There's conflicting reports on that. 6 figures were produced, as well as 2 vehicles. The vehicles were reused molds from Dragon Riders of the Styx line.
Interesting.
One of the really interesting things that I came across doing a bit of research for this is I had actually completely forgotten about Bugmen of Insecta because it's so obscure. I only had one of these characters. I had Lord Grassa of the Grasshopper Men. And what I realized as I was doing some research here and I sent you guys the pictures is that, yeah, one of those vehicles looks very similar to one of the Dragon Riders of the Styx vehicles, which is also on this list here that we'll get to. But I thought that was really fascinating that these two vehicles were the same. So I'm glad you called that out already. I can't really say a lot about this toy line just because of how obscure it is, but it was one of those purchases where I was probably almost out of money at the store and just looking for one last thing to kind of add to the pile. And I was really into insects at a time. I mean, I was really into reptiles. That will come up later this show as well. But I always loved finding toys based on these like real creatures that I was into. So when I saw this like grasshopper man, I was just kind of taken aback. And it's such a colorful figure. It's like really, really vibrant yellows and greens. And it looks like an insect, but it also kind of looks like an alien, like it's maybe from a different planet. And yeah, I love how you said there are 6 characters. I think there might be 5. I don't want to step on your toes there, but however many there are, what I like about this line is they each come from a different tribe. So the entire toy line, they just all hate each other. There's no friends. It's just all enemies, which I thought was funny. But yeah, this was a $3 toy that I bought back in the day. And you know what? It reminds me a little bit of the Sectors toys.
I'm
just
glad
the way
you
that
brought
they
that
look.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, this one was actually a fun one for me just to rediscover because I had forgotten I even had the toy. And I had 4 of these toys that I kind of easily picked out. I was searching for a 5th and I came across Bugmen of Insecta and I was like, holy shit. I owned that guy right there. I remember getting it. I don't have it anymore. Probably, broke, but I definitely wanted to, bring it to the show today.
Yeah. Zach, what are your memories of Bugmen of Insecta?
Yeah, so I did not have these toys of the whole collection. These were the ones I did not have. I definitely had the Warriors of the Styx or whatever they're called. We'll get to those later, but it's so obvious that it's basically very similar molds, and I love it. I think they're cool, and like you said, Tim, definitely Sectars influenced, or one either or vice versa. It's cool. Like these. All of these toys I lump into like the discount pile at KB toy stores or I guess nowadays would be at like Dollar Tree or 5 and under or whatever, but they were affordable for everybody. It wasn't too expensive. They came with a vehicle and it was a cool character to play with, and I mean that's all you need when you're a kid, I hope, until like TV took over and then suddenly it's like, no, I have to have that mask play set, or I have to have that G.I. Joe, Sky Striker or whatever. This was just like, oh, they're cool and, affordable, and I can come up with my own storylines for them, and that's all I need.
And they have really cool blister cards too. Like the artwork is really, really nice on these guys.
Oh yeah, agreed.
But yeah, like let's give props to Bugmen of Insecta because Sectars came out in '85, so these came out before that. And some people even mentioned that they even came out in '83. So that's again without a wiki page. I'm not entirely sure, if they were '83, '84. But they are much more insect looking than the Sectars were. And, it kind of illustrates, and I think, a few of these are going to illustrate the fact that, like, without a cartoon behind them, the reason we kind of, like, don't even remember these anymore is because the formula it's expensive to produce, but the formula is flawless. If you have a cartoon, you can put out those toys and it's an advertisement, and vice versa. It's like this self-feeding, snake eating the tail type of thing. And if you do it right, but you got to hit when when the skillet is hot or whatever, when the iron's hot, because I think one of yours, Tim, is going to be based on a cartoon, but the toys came out a few years later. So like it is interesting to kind of analyze these toys that don't have cartoons attached to them, but these guys look cool. Like,
yeah.
I don't even remember these at all. Like, can't even process, not even registering anything. But as an adult, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, like freaking 5-year-old Corey would have totally been into this, but it never came across my path at all.
Yeah, this also would have been a cartoon that I would have watched.
Yeah.
Now that you're mentioning
no
cartoons. Especially with kind of the idea of each of them being their own tribe and having these factions all fighting against each other. I think it could have made for a really interesting cartoon, but not to be, and that's fine. But yeah, Zach, I think you're completely right about the discount bin because, my memory of just looking for a way to spend the last few dollar bills that I have. You're not looking at the shelf, you're looking up near the front where they have a bin with some cheaper stuff. And that's surely where I found this thing. So.
Yeah, and let's be honest, like, I could get 3 figures or I could get 1 figure. I'm going to go with the 3.
Right.
And let Santa get me the big figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do want to really quick throw out, thanks to like trying to track down the backstory and all of these, I found some really cool like retro toy websites. So I got a couple of these. I got the information from a website called PlaidStallions.com. So go check those guys out because, I ripped the information from them. So give them props. But yeah, Plaid Stallions.
Shout out to Canada.
Cool.
I think that guy's from Toronto. So
okay.
He does lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, no, I just discovered them by trying to track down any kind of information I could get on Bugman of Insecta. But that's a cool one, man. That was a very cool first pick. And Tim said these are kind of in no particular order. There's not like a 1 to 5 or anything. So I'm gonna read off the next one, which is actually my personal favorite of these that I just discovered. Ninja Defender / Ninja Assassin was produced by Select Merchandise in 1985. 10 figures were released, 5 defenders and 5 assassins, and each one came with an assortment of weapons as well as a cloth outfit and mask. By the way, I'm always impressed with it when a toy has cloth goods with it, or soft goods is what the toy market calls it. The masks can be removed to reveal the character's secret identity. The defenders were human, but the assassins were monsters. They featured a werewolf, a cyborg, and more. I actually got this one from vintageninja.net. But Tim, tell us about these badass ninja toys.
Oh man, very cool toy line. Probably out of all of these that I'm bringing, this was probably my favorite back in the day. That's changed now, but when I got this, it blew my mind because, this is a nice follow-up too, because I mentioned, I was into insects and I was into reptiles. So I had Strykor and he was a lizard. So he's got this ninja outfit on, but you can take their clothing off to reveal this like super ripped green and yellow lizard that looked amazing underneath. So I loved that. I was really big into snakes and I had all sorts of just toy snakes that I would play with. So to have like a superhero that was a reptile as well, I was very much into that. I love like accessories, as I'm sure we all do. But this toy came with so many accessories that it was almost too much. Like I couldn't even arm the character with all of them. You had to sort of choose what you wanted him to hold. But he had this really cool like boot knife stuck in his leg. Like there was a really tight rubber band it was actually like sort of molded into the calf. So the calf was like, the plastic was cut out so that the thick rubber would be in line with the leg so that it wouldn't like be too obvious that he has this big rubber band on. And that knife would stick in so well. It was an action character as well. It had a button on its back, so you'd get some movement as well. Yeah, it's it's another toy that was only a couple bucks. Like this one, I might have found this one in the discount bin as well, even though it probably wasn't a discount line. I don't think people might not have known about it, and it might have made its way there. But on the box, they had a great backstory, and it was Reaper, the Grand Master of Death, thought to be dead for years, has returned to take over the earth. To assist him in his quest, he has summoned an assortment of almost invincible, deadly killers known as the Ninja Assassins. So I love that the bad guys are sort of like what they're selling here. They're not really selling the good guys. They're selling the bad guys. And to be honest, I don't even remember seeing any of the good guys in store anywhere. I only remember the bad guys. But I also like that they're almost invincible. Because if they were invincible, then there's no point trying to fight them, right?
Yeah.
But almost invincible, you're saying there's a chance.
And it's funny that, like, if you did find this in the discount bin, when I looked at these figures, there was anything but discount to them. They are so well conceived, so well sculpted, so much detail to them. I already mentioned like the soft goods. There's not only does he have like a mask you can take off, the gi is cloth as well, but like under that you could be like, oh, they could have gone the He-Man route where they just give him a sculpted human body and make it green. No, like what's underneath is also just as interesting looking and well sculpted, and he has like a cloth belt, whatever the color belt and everything like that. The packaging is beautiful looking. This is like my new favorite 80s toy that I never heard of or never even had, but they're really, really cool looking. And the fact that the bad guys are like just different sort of classic monsters, like how could you go wrong with that? Zach, did you ever have any of these? Did they fight your Chuck Norris Karate Commandos?
Well, these were a little bit bigger. They fought my Rambo Forces of Freedom figures because I think they were the same height. They're about 7 inches tall. I had Ringo and Tyro. Those are two of the defenders. I'm going to ask you nice. Where's Ringo? I had to edit myself. But they had an action strike, like either their arm or their leg kind of flipped up. And, I think the reason why a lot of these wound up in the bargain bin was because they didn't have a cartoon attached to them. So there was like no marketing. So people were like, I don't want this. But they were really cool looking. I loved them. They fit in really well with my Rambo Forces of Freedom figures. And I feel like Chuck Norris's Karate Commandos came out maybe a year or so after this. But yeah, these were really, really cool. The funny thing is, like, I was super into, and I still am, like, into all the good guys. So that's what I got. But then, and I didn't at the time have the desire to collect the whole line like I do now for something. But man, if you go on eBay, these things are going for like 30, 40, 50 bucks, and which is amazing, because you could probably get them for like less than $3 at the time here in the United States. They're so cool, especially the font on the cover of the box, like the ninja font is rad. It's so 80s, 1985. It's like the height of ninja culture.
Yeah, and ninjas were big back then.
Yeah, so if anyone still has these in box, they're gonna sell them for buku bucks.
Well, and I think too, like something that's also holding it back is there's no all-encompassing name, because Ninja Assassins are the bad guys, Ninja Defenders are the good guys, but there isn't, like, Ninja is the encompassing name.
Ninja.
But that's not really, like, you can't do much with that. It needs to be something else, And I think that doesn't help it. Obviously, also the whole cartoon angle, which we discussed earlier, and I think that's applicable to 2/3 of these. But yeah, it's a damn shame that these kind of fizzled away, because I don't know if like they're ripe for a reboot, but like, of the moment of the time toys, I would have loved this if I had even seen it,
Well, before we went online, I was saying to Tim and you, I had asked if you guys recognized this one figure that I held up that I showed from a line called M Force. It was a military muscle. That was the name of the toy line. But I feel like they came out around the exact same time, and they were both competing with, Rambo, the Ninja Craze, G.I. Joe. But the fact that they were like 7-inch figures was really interesting, that they weren't 3 3/4, which another one of the toy lines that Tim's going to talk about in a minute was more in the 3 3/4 range. 7-inch was kind of like abnormal. So this could fight against your Commando Arnold Schwarzenegger figure.
Oh yeah, that was that. I had that toy and I had a hard time like putting them against somebody else because I had no other toys that were that size. Kind of like
Exactly.
like Centurions were kind of a weird size as well. But Tim,
exactly.
Tim, was this the only one you had? Was the green lizard guy?
Yeah, this is the only one I had. This is the only one I came across. I still have it. I don't have any of the accessories. I think I ended up cutting his red belt off because it was too long and it got in the way. So I have him. I have his clothing and I have his hood and I think I have the knife that's like built into his leg. But this was definitely one that it came with me everywhere. It was one that I never wanted to lose. It was just so special to me. And it's just such a quality toy. Like, yeah, it's even the upper cloth chest piece that's on it. It could have just been a single green color because this character is green, but they've got it like they've got patchwork on it, almost like it's the the design on the back of a snake or something. It's like they put so much care into even that. This toy line must have gone out of business because of how much money they pumped into this toy, and just people weren't into it, and then they just had to sell them off. But like, my goodness, I don't know if there's a better quality toy that I can remember from my childhood than this toy.
Yeah, there's a remarkable amount of detail in that, and props to any toy that you can actually put one of their weapons or accessories like actually in a holster or something. We talked about that on 80s Kids Unite, the DC Superpowers toys episode. That's one of the features that me personally I love. Anytime you can actually sheath the sword into their backpack like you could with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, but even better, putting a knife in their like a bootstrap or something. That's hella cool right there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could put the character's sword in his back as well, but I think that band wasn't as strong, and I think that might have broken. But
okay. Well, so far 2 amazing picks. Makes me jealous that I never saw them as a kid because I would have loved both of them. This next line though has a feature that I personally love. It's my favorite toy feature, and that's glow in the dark. Monsters at Home was produced by Remco in 1981. These hand puppets reused the head molds from their previous year's 9-inch toy line and sewed them onto cloth bodies. The heads were glow in the dark, and each puppet came with a plastic case that was appropriate for the character. Dracula had a coffin, the mummy had a sarcophagus, etc., etc. Information for this one I got from Plaid Stallions as well. But yeah, this is a Remco one, which of course is the classic Universal monsters, which we all know. And I remember the Remco, the 9-inch toys, but I don't remember these hand puppet things.
Right. So we did have some of the 9-inch toys as well. There was like this Frankenstein bed that it was like where Frankenstein would get hit by electricity to be brought back to life. And we had that, and I think a couple of the toys. And then we came across these ones. And I love the thing you mentioned about them reusing the head mold and the hand mold, because those were designed by Ken Scheller, who's like a very famous toy molder from back in like the 50s, 60s, 70s. He did a lot of stuff for Mego, and they liked what he had done so much that they're like, we need to get a round 2 out of this. And they just created a brand new toy line based upon the head mold and the hand mold. And that's basically all this toy is, because the other part of it is just cloth, because it's a puppet. It's basically a puppet that you could play with. And yes, it comes in like a coffin or some sort of container, which just that container, I can't even tell you how intelligent of a design that container was, because the front opens at like halfway, the upper half opens, and then you can take the entire back off of it. So you can put your hand in the toy and play with it opening and closing the front of the coffin. And there's even a slot for the hand to go. So the hand is actually opening and closing it. And you can put your finger down, into where the arm would go, and you can control that, and you can have a little puppet show with it. And that might sound dorky, but it wasn't. It was so cool. And I was like so into the Universal Monsters at this time that I would have eaten up any toy that there was, but there wasn't a lot. So when we came across this, like, this just blew my mind with how fun and how cool it was. And like the design of their containers is so cool as well. There's four of them. There's the Wolfman, Frankenstein, Creature, and Dracula. We had Creature and Dracula, and the Creatures wasn't all that interesting. It's like this treasure chest at the bottom of the lagoon. I guess there's some seaweed growing on it. But Dracula's was so neat. It was a coffin. It was shaped like a coffin. It had wood paneling. At the top of it, there's this really cool, like, evil looking black demon. And then as you get lower, the wood is kind of broken away, and you can see skulls and bones in the background. And then there's like a cobweb in the corner. So really cool designs. Yeah, they'd glow in the dark, so you could, play with them at the nighttime when your parents are telling you to go to bed. And yeah, I really wish I still had one of these. I just remember spending a lot of time playing with it, and it's just a toy that you would look at and you might not think it would be that fun to play with.
Zach, do you have any recollection of these?
Oh yeah, Remco was huge in our house. Remco was notorious for being affordable, by the way. Like, all of their figures. Remco did like AWA wrestlers. They did the Hercules and Warlord figures.
Yeah, I had a Warlord figure. I got him secondhand, but I had one. Yeah.
Those were so cool. They also came with cloth clothing as well. Some of them did. Actually, no, all of them did to some respect. But then, of course, the toy line, the Universal Studios Monsters, was huge. My brother was way into Monsters. Creature from the Black Lagoon was his favorite. And I was more of like a Wolfman guy. We had these. We had Tim, the Frankenstein control base that he laid on. We had that. It was like battery powered or something. Yeah. I still have the Remco play set for the 3 3/4 figures. It's pretty much falling apart, but I still have it. I'm like, I still held on to it. But it had like a trapdoor it had a thing for the mummy, and like all these contraptions in it that were all paper based, like you could pull tabs and stuff like that. So cool. This puppet line was great. Yeah, again, it's like you're using your imagination as a kid, because there's no cartoon line. There's the classic movies, but not every kid is seeing the classic movies, classic movie monster movies. These were amazing. I love them. And I just love the detail, like on the Creature's hands, you actually see the webbing in his hands, and they were all very distinct and modeled after, the original main four. I feel like the Mummy might have come out later in the line, but probably not. And also I know with the 3 3/4 figures, they also released Phantom of the Opera. I think that was the other one. But anyways, yeah, I love this toy line. It's so rad. And Remco rules. They do. And they're actually coming back, by the way. Remco, the guy who founded Remco, I don't know if it's him or if it's his grandson, but like Remco is coming back with more wrestling figures.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I mean, and it's so unique. I feel like now, then, never do you see like puppets toys, like actually like being treated seriously, like these are still serious toys, but there's hand puppets, and we all had like, Zach, did you have like the little googly monsters sometimes you could put on your fingers, like stuff that you could
still do?
Yeah, stuff that you got out of like the 25-cent, bin, the capsule toys. But this was a fully fledged like hand puppet as a toy. And like if obviously we're an audio only podcast, and this, you might be like rolling your eyes at this and be like, oh, it sounds silly. On paper, it might, but in execution, it's fantastic looking. I personally love my favorite feature besides the glow in the dark is the case, is the coffin and all this kind of stuff that they come in. I love the amount of detail that they put into it. Like I'm looking at Dracula and like Tim said, like it's, they could have easily just molded, like making it look wood, but it's clearly like a sticker on the front, like a very detailed sticker with a skull breaking through the wood and all this kind of stuff. And I'm also kind of a sucker for, I don't know, containers, like toys that have some kind of a container that's also molded and put into the, like it's a part of the play features. Like I'm kind of a sucker for that. And I couldn't really tell from the pictures, but Tim, you elaborated on, you can actually put your hand or your fingers up through the coffin itself. So it's not just a container for the puppet, it's a part of the play factor of the entire toy. And I think that's just beautiful. I think that's amazing. Again, another one, never saw it once when I was a kid. Although that being said, I wasn't the biggest Universal Monster kid growing up. I've grown to appreciate the hell out of those movies, and Creature from Black Lagoon is my favorite as well. Although my 9-year-old nephew, his favorite is The Invisible Man. So
you can be like, oh, I have the toy of that. It's right here.
It's right here. It's right here. But like, so I don't know
cool.
if this would have crossed, like I might have seen this and not paid any attention to it because it was Universal Monsters. But again, looking at it from a 46-year-old, I'm like, that's really freaking cool. And it's glow in the dark, and it's got like a cool little case that comes with it. And yeah, maybe Creatures is a little weird with the treasure chest, but you know what? Like, who cares?
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? All the other ones fit really well. Tim, did you say which ones you had? You said you had Creature for sure. And then did you have Dracula too?
Yeah, I had Creature, and my older brother had Dracula.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
The Dracula too, like they're not afraid to, get a little creepy with it because the mouth is full of blood and there's actually blood dripping out of the mouth. So, not the typical thing you'd see for a kid, but I like that they went that way. And I think I might have said before that the Wolfman was one of them, but Zach, you're right. It was the Mummy. There was no Wolfman. There was a Mummy character.
Okay, got it. They should have released a Wolfman though.
Yeah, you think they would, right?
Right. What would his case have been though?
Probably a trunk, like like a gypsy trunk,
or like a silver trunk or something, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that, yeah.
I could foresee
but
them.
the Mummy's a no-brainer. Mummy's a no-brainer.
Oh yeah, Mummy's easy. Dracula's easy, but I could see them being like, we can't come up with anything for Wolfman. Let's just keep him out of the line, maybe.
So give him a log. Put him in a log.
Come out of a log, rolls downstairs, rolls over in pairs, rolls over your neighbor's dog.
It's a log.
Okay. We're going to actually come to a line of toys that I actually had, so I can actually contribute to this conversation. Yay! Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim.
And I'm Dean.
And we're the hosts of Talking Back. We're a retro-based podcast covering movies, comics, video games, and more.
Check us out every Monday where we hit the rewind button and dig into some of our favorite content from the past. We like to keep things fun, lighthearted, and informative.
Do you feel like you need more nostalgia in your life? Then check out Talking Back. We're available everywhere podcasts are found.
And now, back to the show. Black Star was an American animated science fiction television series produced in 1981 by Lou Scheimer and Norm Prescott for Filmation. We love our Filmation over here. We're big Filmation fans. The series was Filmation's second fantasy epic and has many notable similarities to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which was produced shortly afterwards. The Black Star toys were released by Galoob from 1983 to 1985. 3 waves of figures were produced featuring laser light stone sparking action. 7 vehicles and 1 playset was created for the line. I actually got this one from Wikipedia.
Nice, yeah. Now this was, based on the cartoon, but as you mentioned earlier, it came a few years later. I barely remember their cartoon. I honestly don't know if I have ever seen it or not. I definitely
probably because it was just 12 episodes.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think that had anything to do with me buying these toys, but I mean, Galoob is just one of these classic toy companies that's been around forever. That, you know, if you were buying toys in the 70s and 80s, you probably bought a Galoob toy and didn't even know it. The fun fact about Galoob is that they created the Game Genie for the NES, and Nintendo sued them for it, and Galoob actually won the court battle and were allowed to continue making Game Genies.
I remember that court battle. I feel like that was news that I read maybe in Nintendo Power or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're like, we're gonna crush these bastards.
Oops, no, we didn't.
Sons of bitches.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Adding fun to your games. How dare they? Yeah. So I had this was definitely KB toy purchase. Knew nothing about it. Saw them on the shelf and was just blown away by this toy line. So I had two characters. I had Gargo, and I had Neptune, and both of which I lost over the years. Yep, there they are. Both of which I lost over the years and had to repurchase because I just dropped one of them. I had to repurchase them because I needed to relive this nostalgia. So I do have both of those guys still here.
Oh my God.
Oh, sweet.
They look
And they're-
amazing.
So Corey, these guys have all sorts of stuff that you're into. So this is Fabric. He's got a fabric cape.
It's got soft
Yep.
goods.
Their weapons are glow in the dark.
Oh my God.
And like these wings they're things that you can put into their back. So you can take the wings off, you can take the cape off. Very sturdy, very solid looking characters.
Yeah, they're freaking huge.
They're huge, and whenever you'd buy one, they'd always come with this little demon. So you'd get the demon
Yeah.
as well. So they're two toys in a package. So
Right.
just the look of these, like, they're very impressive toys to look at. They have the accessories. They've got the glow in the dark stuff. So this was a no-brainer for me. I was into like a Creature from the Black Lagoon is my favorite Universal monster. So Neptune, he's very similar to that, like an underwater creature. His weapon is a trident. So I was very taken aback by these toys. And yeah, I just had to get these in my adult life. I loved them so much. I had such nostalgia for them that I had to pick them up, mint condition, with all their accessories. So these are...
Did they cost a pretty penny?
They weren't bad. I think I actually found on eBay, I found a lot that had both of the characters and the two demons that they came with. And I think I paid like maybe $80 for it. So
Not bad.
not bad. And they were complete. So it wasn't,
Cool.
I don't think it was too bad at all. So I'm very happy to have them. Yeah, really cool looking toys. I think these are kind of the best of the toy line, in my opinion. If you look at some of the other characters in the line, they're not as interesting. Even Blackstar himself, I don't think is that interesting of a character, but these are a couple villains. Oftentimes villains get made to look cooler than the heroes, and I definitely took to these two.
So do their spark features still work on them?
So this is series 1 that I have, and the
and
spark
they added
feature.
them in series 2 and 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Spark feature was series 2, but I did have a spark feature one when I was younger. So I had the series 1. Then I think my brother destroyed it, popped its head off. And my older brother loved to ruin the things that I loved. So I think my toy got ruined. And then I was able to pick up a series 2 of the same guy with the spark feature. But I never thought it was as cool as the series 1 that did not have that.
Yeah, so they re-released when they started doing the spark features in series 2. They retooled the entire first series line to have those spark features. So the two toys that I had from this series are exactly the same as you had, Tim, but mine had the spark feature. Now, Zach, if you remember on the 80s Kids Unite Superpowers thing, I talked about having a used secondhand toy store near me. So I got these toys there. So I never had the little guy that came with it, and I never had a lot of their accessories, but I thought they looked super cool, and I'm sure they were just super cheap because they didn't have any of the accessories and stuff. And I love the fact that they had this spark feature, which is essentially... it's Zach, like how do you like those toys are like those like guns or something that would shoot sparks out, but then they did that inside the body, and there would be a covering of plastic, so that way the sparks would be kind of hitting the plastic and not actually the kid, you know what I mean? But it would create the light up feature inside their chest or wherever. But the funny thing is, when I was doing the research for this, and I saw those two figures, it basically answered like a fucking 3-year-old question I had, which is I didn't know where these toys came from. These two toys that I had growing up. So when I saw that green guy, I'm sitting there, I'm like freaking Neo in the Matrix, like I'm getting flooded with information, and I'm like, oh my God, I just had like a lifelong question answered for me because I didn't know I had these Black Star figures. I didn't have Black Star himself, but I had those two bad guys, and they were beloved by me. Like I used them for so much, but I don't remember that one guy having wings, so I don't think mine came with the wings. And I even mentioned it on that 80s Kids Unite episode. A lot of times now, even in the secondary market, the accessories are worth more than sometimes the base toy themselves because they're a lot harder to come by. But Zach, you, through the course of this, our 6 years of doing this show, you've brought up Black Star a lot. Was that a cartoon that you loved as a kid?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I still have my Black Star figure. And with the spark feature,
so
which
it's series
still
2
works.
then, yeah.
Yeah, and he has a cloth cape that he comes with, and that awesome sword. And Black Star walked so He-Man could run. Like there would be no He-Man if it wasn't for Black Star. And right down to the dragon that he rides, that was in one of the Filmation episodes. I think the same color too. But it wasn't referenced that it was Black Star's dragon, but it definitely was like a big, wow moment for people that recognize the toy line. This toy line was amazing. I had the Overlord, I believe his name is. He's like the main villain of the show because they have two halves of the sword, very similar to what He-Man's comic book did, not the cartoon, but very similar premise. John Blackstar, he's an astronaut that crashes from Earth on a planet, kind of like Mark Wahlberg in Planet of the Apes. They must have borrowed that from there. I don't know. No, that's from the book. Anyways, I guess the Holy Grail is like that the castle that Black Star is the place that he comes with. That's a hard one to come by. Just like the Sectar's lair, by the way, we mentioned the Sectars earlier. That lair goes for a pretty penny as well. These figures were cool. They were all unique looking, and they were bigger. I think they were like 5 or 6 inches tall. They're little, what do you call them? Kind of Orko rip-off characters. Like Orko's definitely influenced by and Orko and She-Ra's like kind of sidekicks are definitely influenced by the little tra-la-la guys that come with on Black Star's side. It's funny, there's all these villains, but then Black Star's got like, a handful of good guys that come with him, and it's mostly these little guys that don't move. They're like, what do you call them? PVC figures?
Yeah, they're just molded into one pose, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, but the toy line was amazing. I loved it, and I still have the Black Star with the sword, and I'm never gonna give it up.
Was it his necklace sack that lit up his like? It's not really a necklace. What is that thing?
Yeah, it's like a necklace, I guess. It's like his power necklace.
Yeah,
what he gets some of his power from. And I mean, he's a generic sword and sorcery kind of dude, But again, it's like a precursor to He-Man. So definitely He-Man vibes from Black Star. Down to the loincloth, too. The same loincloth as well.
And it's amazing that they got, like, I guess, 2 years. We got 3, toy waves over the course of 2 years from a 12-episode cartoon. Like, that's not even enough to get to syndication. So do you think maybe... I mean, it's still pretty early on, but do you think maybe it did better on VHS and that's maybe what propelled? Because I'm just thinking that like that 12 episodes would have been come and gone, and then boom, the toys. And I think of like Chuck Norris Karate Commandos, that was that was like 6 or 7 or 8 episodes, right, Zach? But the toys came out at the exact same time as the cartoon, right?
Yeah, I think these banked off of Filmation doing He-Man. And so He-Man was so big and they're like, oh, we also have this.
Okay.
So, but what I love about Filmation is there's such a wholesome family friendly company. Because even the description on the Black Star thing is like, that when they're talking about the sparking feature on these figures, a safe sparking device, like not a unsafe sparking device, a safe one that with glow in the dark weapons. But I love that about Filmation. Like it's just so bizarre and out of the, all over the place. I guess Smurfs would be another like reference to these like little tra-la-la guys. And also, again, Filmation would recycle their stuff with Brave Star, which was their cosmic cowboy line.
Yeah.
And they had these little gold miner figures that would come with Brave Star. So
yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I do love the little demon minion guys. Not a huge fan of the pink tra-la-la dudes, but but again, the toy line's overall phenomenal.
Yeah. And Tim, you said you never watched the cartoon, right?
No, I've never seen the cartoon.
Oh, you got to watch it. It's free on YouTube. Just go on YouTube and at least watch the pilot. The animation is like very, it's similar to Flash Gordon, where they still hadn't really gotten it down smooth yet. It felt a little animatic, versus He-Man, which was a lot more fluid. But it's cool, and the score is amazing.
That's
for the show
fine.
as well.
I find with some of those shows that it can be a bit jarring for the first couple minutes, and then you sort of just get into it and you get used to it, and it's not even a big deal. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The big plus for He-Man was that rotoscoping, which is why you saw the same sort of movements and poses all the time, because they had they did a full like video shoot of like a muscle guy doing all these moves and everything, and they just kind of drew over him. But I'm a big fan of rotoscoping animation style.
Yeah, if it's done well, for sure. Yeah. I just wanted to say, I think these toys also did really well. You had mentioned maybe the VHS sales kind of powered it through. I think the toy line itself probably powered itself through because of the quality of what you're getting. You are getting more than one character per toy. Zach, you mentioned earlier, do I buy one character or do I buy 3? Well, if you're choosing a toy that's, $8.99 or something, and you can get 2 characters and you can get something glow in the dark, people might be going to that. That might be why there were so many series. Maybe series 1 sold out and they made series 2 and that sold out. So let's do a series 3. Right. So it is a quality toy. So I think it was a nice one to get back in the day.
Well, I mean,
oh yeah, for sure.
And we're doing this over Zoom, and because we're in 3 different time zones, but like of all the toys, these are the only ones I think Tim, or at least the only ones he's shown us so far that he actually has. But to actually see them in person and see him holding them like up, and Tim is, a 46-year-old man, and they look big in his hands. I can only imagine like what they were like in a kid's hands. You know what I mean?
They're
like
huge.
it's an impressive toy.
It fills my entire hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the sculpt is amazing, and you said the quality and like the sort of the heft to it is really nice.
Yeah,
they're so cool.
The demons themselves are just like a single plastic mold. So they're like literally indestructible. Like there's no moving part on them, but you can still bend them a little bit. Like the tail can bend, the arm can bend, but this thing has survived, 40 years and it's in mint condition.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I also have all these things that I love about toys, and it's so funny because like kids nowadays don't play with toys at all. But I used to love like PVC miniature toys of like, Zach, do you remember like there was Transformers would put out these like PVC miniatures of like Megatron, but he would look like the cartoon version, but he couldn't transform or do anything, but I still kind of loved him, and he was only like 2 or 3 inches tall or something, like shit like that. I love that shit.
Yeah, no, I love him too. It's a shame that Bodie still plays with toys every now and then.
Well, I want to talk about toys and kids nowadays when we get to the end of this, because I do have some observations from having a 9-year-old nephew who comes over to my house and doesn't pay one lick of attention to my toys that are everywhere, but yet is mesmerized by my Blu-rays.
Of course.
Okay, so last one. Another one that I kind of remember existing, but I know I didn't have it. So at least I know the existence of this one. And we mentioned it earlier. Dragon Riders of the Styx was produced by Dimensions for Children, aka DFC, in 1983. The line capitalized on the popularity of Dungeons & Dragons with a variety of unique and imaginative toys. The Dragon Riders of the Styx line featured 6 action figures, 5 dueling devils, 5 riding creatures, several playsets, and more. The Dragon Riders of the Styx had a limited release by DFC, and they did not stay on shelves past the end of that year. I got this one from Wheeljack's Lab, I think, .com, Wheeljack's Lab. I think that's a reference to the Transformers character. Another good source for 80s toys information. But, Tim, Dragon Riders of the Styx.
Yeah, so sword and sorcery here. There wasn't too much of it back in the day. I think you had some D&D stuff that was out, but there wasn't a whole lot of just pure sword and sorcery. What I think is unique about this toy line is it really does feel like 2 separate toy lines in one, because you have these like wizard and warrior type little like green army men-esque characters. But they take the army men and they just go so much better with it. You know, you have all these different colors, you have all these different characters. This is a toy I can show you a bunch of here because I have a bunch of them around. But I've got a bunch of these little miniature guys. There's a little, like, there's a soldier with an axe. There's a demon with an axe. There's a red wizard with a wand in the air. There's a black demon with a sword. I don't know if you guys can see these, but
yeah. Perfect for role-playing games.
Oh yeah, there's a big ogre here with a gray ogre with a bended knife and a ball and chain. There's like a Norseman here with a ball and chain. There's a red demon with a sword. There's a different type of knight with a sword and shield. That's the same guy. But you had so many options with these little characters, and you'd get them in a box, and you'd get a whole bunch of them, and you'd get like this world map, and you could stage your little battles and play with them that way. And this was the one aspect of all these toys that I do remember getting in Canada. I got a box of these little characters and this like play mat from here. But what I didn't even realize was this second side of this toy line. And I'll be honest, I don't even think I knew about it back in the day. I think I only realized a few years ago that this was all one toy line. I thought it was 2 separate toy lines, because on the other side of it, you have these 4-inch characters that you would purchase, and they'd come with a large vehicle. So
yeah,
I still have that guy here too. It's this like
cool.
This Wolfman figure riding a 2-headed dragon. And this was just a separate toy that I purchased. I remember like lifting this one off the shelf, just mind blown at how cool this 2-headed dragon was. And so that 2-headed dragon made its way with me throughout the years, and I recently picked up the rider so that I could have like a complete pairing there. But just a really interesting toy line there.
Yeah, like what the choice of like, it seems like you want to like sort of stay in one lane, you know what I mean? So like if you're going to be like medieval army men, and there's like this castle play set, and it's freaking huge, but it's perfect because you have all these little army men. But then you also produce a couple of these bigger figures. Are those bigger figures also represented in the smaller line, or are they completely like separate?
They're completely separate. It's almost like they would be your hero for your army, and you'd have a battle with your hero and a bunch of like minions behind them. But yeah, they're too big to even play on the map with, right? The map is for the small characters. These bigger guys are just, bigger ones to play with. And I sent you guys a picture of this skull vehicle. I think it's called the Skull Rider. I had that as well. That one is quite rare now. That'll fetch 4 figures if you have that, even used.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But
it's crazy.
The thing with that one is, like, on this sled, there's a couple snakes that go down the side. those you could actually take off and play with as snakes. So I think to actually find that complete with the vehicle, with those snakes, with the rider would be very, very hard to find nowadays. But I did have that one as well. And this is the Dragon Rider from the Styx toy that was the same mold as the Bugmen of Insecta. It's that same skull face.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I keep going back to that castle though, man. Like that as a kid, I would have been into that. It's like, even says on the thing, it's like 2 feet by 4 feet. But you know, when you're a tiny little kid, like that's freaking huge. But it has like a drawbridge and everything. And obviously, you know, I guess, did they sell the little PVC army, like medieval armymen, like separately? Like, so could you like build out your army with that, like in a bag or something?
No, I don't think so. I think you had to buy the set, but you'd get a bunch of them.
Okay, you get a ton of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had all of these as well. I had the play set. We'll post some of these pictures on our Instagram, but I had the play set that came with all the little PVC figures and the play mat with the mini castle. I didn't have the maxi castle. Gosh, I wish I still had them now, because, you know, with how into D&D Bodhi is and plays a weekly game with his friends, and, you know, using little mini figures to, you know, push the storyline along or whatever, would be amazing to do that with these figures, because they're so cool. Like this was definitely, you know, I'm not surprised that this was shut down as fast as it was, because, like, you know, company like TSR or whoever was producing the Dungeons and Dragons line at the time probably was stepping in like, nope, you can't do this. It's literally what we're doing. But then again, and it's funny what you say, Tim, like, yeah, it's crazy how these are worth 3 figures, 4 figures online now on eBay or whatnot. But back in the day, this was the mother of bargain bin figures for me. Like, I remember going to Toys R Us and seeing these for like $1.99, the 3 3/4 or the 4-inch figures, you know, and I loved them. I loved I had the whole line, because again, they were so cheap, and I was able to get the whole line. I think there was like one figure that I didn't have, but they were so cool looking. It's so funny, the Ragnar or whoever, like the main, you know, hero was, he was so cheesy, but it's like, I wanted a hero so bad, you know? And he had this, like, you know, Norse helmet on with like flesh colored clothes. I think it was supposed to be his flesh, like just basically like a Beastmaster kind of deal, but I pretended it was his clothes because I was a little too sus for me. Anyways,
too much flesh.
Too much flesh. The toy line was rad. Yeah, I wish I still had the Dragon Ride. Like, I wish I still had that whole playset. I kicked myself.
Did you?
But
Zach,
did this.
Did you have the castle and everything?
Oh yeah, I had the whole
man.
thing. I had that whole Dragon Riders, like the pink box playset, because like you could get that for, you know, the price tag on the actual box says like $20, but you could get it marked down for $10 sometimes. And then they had, you know, they had Cowboys and Indians. They had the army thing. Like, there were other ones like this as well, with, you know, battlefields or Old West outpost kind of thing. And it was so neat looking. Definitely the highlight of the 80s for sure. I wish they still did stuff like this. It definitely is a high on my nostalgia list.
Dude, I can see like filling out, like, Zach, remember crossbows and catapults?
Yeah, it's exactly like that, which is back, by the way.
Oh, I know. Just like how Fireball Island came back. But I could see using these little figures, because I had crossbows and catapults. That I loved. I could see using these little figures to kind of fill out the army with and everything like that. And that's why I asked if, like, maybe they sold them, like, sort of in a bag or something, because I would have totally picked them up for that.
No, but I will say a lot of these figures were reproduced. If you go on, like, Amazon and you type in D&D figures, there's very similar ones that you can now find on Amazon. But
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if, like, you spend all this money tooling these toys and it goes away, it's like, well, we still have the molds and everything.
Right.
Just sell the molds to somebody else and they can do something with it. You know, you've already done half the work. Man, yeah, Tim, this one super cool. And I remember the name. It's probably because of the sticks. You know, it's STYX or whatever. So I kind of remember the name. But I was always a big sci-fi kid. Obviously, like I said, I had crossbows and catapults. I think because the gimmick really hooked me. But I was always a sci-fi kid, so I didn't really lean towards like Dungeons and Dragons, didn't really lean towards like the fantasy stuff. But I do remember the name of this, and I do remember seeing that sort of pink package box thing. Again, now as an adult, I look at it and I'm like, that's really cool looking.
I'm just having an aha moment because I'm realizing this came out around the same time that the Clash of the Titans toys came out.
Yes.
Which I still have. I still have Perseus downstairs, and the skull dragon the River Styx guy who leads him across in the boat. I have a couple toys, and I had the Kraken, but I remember they all came out around the same time, and I remember going to Toys R Us and like getting these, not getting the Clash of the Titan figures. And if you track down those blister packages, those are beautiful, by the way, the Clash of the Titan ones. But anyways,
the video store that I worked at outside of DC, our only celebrity that we ever got coming in was Harry Hamlin. And yes, and he bought porn. So
doesn't surprise me.
No, not at all. Tim, like any more thoughts on the sticks, Dragon Riders of the Sticks?
I just think it's weird how like segregated the two sides were, with these small characters being a unit and then the bigger characters being a unit, because you easily could have got away with, you know, in one of these bigger toys with the 4-inch character and one of the vehicles, throw 2 or 3 of those little PVC toys in there as well. Do some, you know, cross promotion, if you will, amongst your own toy line, and throw like a 4-inch character in one of the boxes with all the PVC characters. But it just seems so separate that, like I said, I think I only learned a couple of years ago that these were the same toy line. But yeah, again, just toys I love. Yeah, I just think they're so cool. The little PVC characters, there's so many like differences between them. And I think I showed 2, 4, 6. I showed 8 of them here. They're all different. They're all unique, and there's more than that. I don't know. I don't have them all. So yeah, it's cool. That's a level of detail that's going into a line of toys that you don't really get anymore. I don't see this type of like love being put into a lot of stuff, which is why the toys from the 80s were the best toys of ever.
Yeah, they really were. I mean, for my money on this one, this whole discussion, my favorite that I never had were the Ninja Assassins and Ninja Defenders. Probably Ninja Assassin. I would have stuck with the bad guys too. But I mean, so much love and craftsmanship put into them. But, you know, you guys both have sons, and I have a nephew that's 9. And it's so interesting to me because the 3 of us here, we're talking an hour about 5 different toy lines that we loved as kids. And toys were such a big deal to us growing up in the 80s. And like I said, so my nephew will come over, and I have toys everywhere. I have He-Man toys. I have G.I. Joe toys. I have toys all over the house. I put them in between my wife's plants and everything like that. I have Star Wars toys. My nephew doesn't give a rat's ass about any of them. Even if it's a character that he already likes from Star Wars or something, it doesn't register at all for him. And he doesn't play with a lot of toys at home either, unless it's like a Nerf gun or something. Was it the fact that we were like so heavily marketed with cartoons as a kid, and it was such like a symbiotic relationship? And I know, Zach, you're raising Bodhi on toys and everything like that and whatnot, but like that I don't think that's the norm for nowadays. You know what I mean? And none of these cartoons that the kids watch nowadays, the ones that are on Netflix and stuff like that, they don't like have any toys at all. And if the fact that you go and see, there's no like Star Wars toys out there for kids anymore. It's all for adults, people our age. So like, did we just live in an era that was very specific to its time, you know?
I would agree with that. From my son's experiences, The cartoons that he grew up watching that did have toys, he was very into collecting those toys and playing with them. But there's so many shows out there nowadays, and like you said, there's not a lot of toys. So I think it's that combination of you can watch something on screen and then immediately be playing with it yourself. You can watch what they do in the show and you can go and play out your own storyline. So that happened a lot for us in the 80s, and I don't think it's happening all that much nowadays. And I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah. I think also too, there's no push anymore for kids to play with toys. It's all tech based,
Tablets, video
And-
games.
Yeah. And there's also this like weird desire to like have kids grow up faster than they should, and I think, when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, using your imagination and just playing with toys, like that's an art form that unfortunately not many kids have nowadays. That I've observed. It is what it is, like I'm never getting rid of the toys that I have. And I know the toys that Bodhi has that he loves, like he'll become an adult and he'll look back at them and want to play with them again, just like we do with our toys,
Yeah.
It goes in waves. The 80s were the best time creatively for toys. And I'm just so glad that we could talk about these toy lines, because outside of the bug one, I vividly remember all of these and fondly remember them. And these were the ones too that I could buy versus, having to rely on my mom or, rely on like a relative buying them for me. I could go to KB toy stores, or I could go to Toys R Us by myself and buy them, because I could afford them. But that's definitely not the case for anything anymore.
Well, it's also nice too, because Zach and I did like an obscure toy thing, like a watch list like this, but like back in like season 1 or something like that. It was a million years ago. And Tim, you hit on toys that we never talked about on that show. So this is kind of a nice compendium piece to that one. So
Right.
I'll try to dig up the link for that one and put it in the show notes here, so people go back and listen to it. Again, we were baby podcasters back then, so excuse.
Oh, we got so much flack that people were like, "Well, that's not obscure," and you're like, "Okay, fine, sure." Well, you know what? We'll do a follow up, just like with the TV theme songs. People are like, well, how come you didn't cover that? We will get to all of that stuff. We'll do a part 2 to these obscure toys. These are
obscure.
These are so obscure. These are definitely obscure. These are so obscure that I guarantee you, less than 10 people will know. Less than 10 of our listeners will know about these toys.
Yeah, I can't wait to make the Instagram posts with all the pictures, because they're either going to get a lot of love or no love, because people are just going to be like, nothing registers for them. But Tim, I do appreciate you digging deep into the obscure factor on this one.
Hey,
I think Robert yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's just this is just what I loved. These were my favorites as a kid. So obscure or not, I guess they're so obscure you can only find them in the U.S.
They're definitely obscure. I guarantee you, our friend Robert Ortiz probably still has some of these in his collection, and our friend Scott Zillner definitely still has some of these.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I'm sure he knows every single one of these, and he can probably correct anything I got wrong on my little my little wiki put-togethers.
I will say a quick shout out to like Super 7, who released some Dungeons and Dragon 3 3/4 figures, very similar to the Dragon Riders of the Styx looking figures. So
nice.
They were clearly influenced by that. And you know what? Because, well, no, these Dragon Rider figures are still better, because at least the knees bent on these. With the new Super 7s, there's no articulation.
Oh,
Womp
Super
womp.
7.
And then they released the G.I. Joes with like, all the movements.
Yeah,
But
for like $50 a piece or
Yeah.
something,
But then all the the little joint posts or whatever are like silver when they should be the painted. It's so
Oh.
cheap. It's so cheap. So again, the 80s were the only time when people truly cared about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, again, Tim having those 2 toys, Black Star toys, they still look like they function. They still look like they put together, because, things were made better back in the 80s.
Just don't inhale them,
No, don't smoke them, because they'll probably give you cancer.
Don't play with them; they'll break. But
Yes.
they're fun to look at now.
Tim, thank you so much, man, for taking the time to talk about these childhood toys of yours. This episode was everything that I envisioned it to be. Mainly, me not knowing half of these toys. But thank you so much for coming on the show, man. This was freaking awesome. Again, tell everybody about Talking Back and where they can find you and everything.
Yeah, it's always my pleasure, guys, to come and chat whatever with you. Talking Back, yeah, if you search us on Google, you'll find everything we have to offer. So it's that easy.
And you know what? I say, guys and gals out there, check out their Patreon. But if by chance, I know money's tight and everything like that, leave them a 5-star review. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave $2 late fee a 5-star review. Leave Talking Back a 5-star review. Wherever you listen to podcasts, it really does go a long way to helping out a show, and it's a free way to help out a show. So any podcast you listen to, give them a 5-star review. It really does help.
Our Patreon is free for a week. So if you want to sign up and get a free week, the content's there. We've already recorded it. We don't care if you go listen to it for a week and then cancel. Who cares? But if you want to go check some stuff out for free, feel free.
And that's patreon.com/
Talking Back. We'll bring it up, but it's Talking Back Podcast is the official. But I think if you just do Talking Back, you'll find us.
Okay, yeah, because I always think Talkback Pod, but that's your handle on Instagram.
That's our social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
yeah. So I'll put all the links in the show notes and everything like that.
I'll be honest, I'm starting to get exhausted by social media. So my posts,
we all are.
the Talking Back posts have been a little bit less frequent and interesting as they used to be, but we'll still notify you when a new episode comes out.
I mean, and that's all that really matters, because, you guys put on a great show, and that's what you guys are. You guys are a podcast, just like we're a podcast, and To Our Late Fee's a podcast. We're not Instagram pages. We're not, Twitter pages and all that kind of shit. So we can let those people be influencers and everything. I am happy being a podcaster, and I'm happy that you guys are my friends, and I'm happy to be a part of this whole universe, this whole shared universe that we have. So go check out Talking Back, go check out $2 late fee, and thank you all for listening to Podcasting After Dark. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.